Rebel religion in the news.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Rebel Religion in the News. Basically, here's the thing. We look at all the news topics and the stories, and we try to say, okay, where's God in this? Or what are people's opinions about who God is and what he's doing? And sometimes it's lighthearted, sometimes it's tongue-in-cheek, and the reason why I'm saying that. So I'll tell you in a minute. We're here this morning with the host, Jerry O'Lennon, and we also have Brendan DeForest, Pastor Brendan DeForest.
Good morning. I'm Jerry.
Yep, that's Jerry, and this is Brendan.
Good morning.
Redeemer Lutheran Church. I don't want to get them mixed up. I was going to say that, though. I wasn't proud of myself. Okay, well, here's the thing. Here's what the show's about. Every time we have a podcast, we're basically going through what the news says. And the interesting thing is, and a lot of the podcasts we have are now starting to get 100, 200, 300. I think the top one was 400 types of views, and there's comments. So today we're going to spend some time just going through some comments. So here's the first one for you. Let's just roll it out. Hey, Jerry, you remember we were talking about ChatGPT because you saw the video.
Right, ChatGPT. There was the skeptic. His name's I can't seem to remember his name. I wish I could remember it, but he challenged ChatGPT to say if there is or is not a God, and ChatGPT came out and, given the parameters that were set by the individual atheist, decided that yes, there indeed is a God.
Yeah, and so we talked about that. We said, okay, well, it's interesting. Everybody's so high on ChatGPT right now. Everybody's saying, well, ChatGPT is the greatest thing. And I think a lot of people that I've talked to, they're conservatives, they've always kind of said that they believe that ChatGPT was programmed to be more progressive or liberal. So at that topic of, well, what does ChatGPT say about the existence of God? Okay, so here's the first comment I want to go through here. ChatGPT basically said to this atheist, yes, there's a God. And one person basically commented back that says, religious people who just don't understand how LLMs work. So what's an LLMS?
Is that a something language model? Right?
Yes.
Long language model. And it's what ChatGPT uses in order to create the answers that it does. So ChatGPT, well, all of AI is basically plagiarism. Because no, I'm serious.
Yeah. No, you're right.
Everything that's on the internet, and it goes through it in a second, and then it can spit out an answer in a second. Well, I mean, what is the religion that's dominated the world? From the beginning of time, Christianity.
Yeah, Christianity.
ChatGPT has the most to plagiarize from Christianity. All the hymns, all of the writings, all of the Bible itself. So it kind of makes sense. It's going to plagiarize Christianity and say Christianity is true.
Well, by the way, I didn't introduce myself. Alfredo Romero, Pastor Alfredo from Rockville Life Fellowship.
By the way, I want to mention he's called the atheist skeptic. Alex O'Connor is his name.
That's him. That's
right.
him.
And so, what were some of the comments? The basic complaint was that religious people don't understand high technology. Is that what they said?
Well, no, that was one person, but this is XE Music, EXI Music. Well, let me tell you what my concern about this was, and I'm going to read the next one. This is from Artani Dean. He basically said, so you're suggesting artificial intelligence, basically, now proves religious notions of God. Consider Bill Donahue to learn the deeper truth of the messages in most all religions. I'm assuming this guy's an atheist or agnostic at least.
No, just the opposite.
Really?
Go ahead.
Unfortunately, due to fear, control, and greed, the church manipulates the minds of the masses with the fairy tale interpretations of scriptures. It's always God in the gaps to explain what none may know. Then all of the names are so labeled God. And he says, nope. A little bit more. He says, the Bible shares archetypes for the reader to meditate upon. Soon to learn all these archetypes, it's about you, capitals, within. No need to believe in things you cannot know. Mysteries are great. Consider meditation. Meditation is the so-called praying to understand. No, he's not. I don't think he's a Christian.
No.
These juvenile beliefs so many have, especially Christians, is so silly. By the way, Alex O'Connor is a seeker and self-proclaimed agnostic atheist. Labels are labels. And so here's the thing. We never said that. We joked, actually. We said, oh, that settles it. There's a God. We just found it interesting that artificial intelligence that was presumably programmed just to read off the internet,
Yeah.
which is basically non-conservative, more liberal, progressive, actually to an atheist agnostic, came out and said, hey, yeah, sure, well, based upon what you're saying, there is a God. I just found that interesting. No intent to way, as a Christian, did we ever say, now my faith is complete. Now I'm assured that there's a God. So
I do think, I know Pastor Tim Rule, who's regular on the show, he did suggest that, we Christians don't need ChatGPT to tell us there's a God. And
No.
I think he took, I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I think
Nope.
he didn't take offense to it, but he was very clear. That does not prove anything to us. We've always believed that. But I don't think that was our past, speaking to Pastor DeForest. I think what we were trying to say was that for some people, like a skeptic, like an atheist, this may make a difference. This could be a seed that's planted in their head and says, well, maybe I need to rethink this, which is a good thing.
It's like the whole field of apologetics. If you're reading the Bible, you don't really need apologetics. But is apologetics super helpful? It certainly can be for some people. And that's maybe the link that they need in order to fully come to faith.
Yeah, God will use all different avenues,
Yeah.
different means
Yeah.
in order to get people to at least
Acknowledge.
minimum acknowledge that he exists.
Yeah.
One of the questions I still want to discuss, and we're not going to do it today, is how do you get the person, because Satan believes in God,
Right.
but how do you get people to love and trust and put their faith in God? That's the real pivot. That's the change. So if
And
this
that's only the work of the Holy Spirit.
Okay.
To bring people to faith.
Right.
So
And so for this fellow, Mr. O'Connor, Alex O'Connor, if he realizes that there is a God, maybe that is the first step, using ChatGPT to be a vehicle to bring people to God. So I think that's kind of what we were saying when we're talking. Let's move on to the next email, though.
Yeah, so the next email is sensitive, and we said that when we talked about suicide, suicide rates being up, and suicide sometimes in the assisted suicide movement. Some people believe that even without a physical ailment, that they have a right to commit suicide. Stephanie, I won't say the rest of this actually. Sometimes medical reasons call for the call of abortion, and it's the woman's right. I do not believe it should be used for birth control. Yeah, I agree with that. They should get their tubes tied. Well, there's options. But it says, now that Trump is here, we're going to have to deal with more stress and homeless people. Churches in Chico do not deal with the serious issues. If a person is old or seriously ill, hospice needs to be available. And God bless this woman, this person. She says, my son was severely disabled, and when he passed, I had him cremated, so I'm not polluting the earth. He is ash just as a tree is ash. There is no heaven. This is it. You have this life, live it. I'm 60 and have cancer and a hard life. I had a coworker that I barely knew. He was happy just a couple hours before when I saw him. The next morning I went to work. I was devastated that he had taken his life. Trump is a criminal. He's not a Christian. He is what anyone calls the evil devil. If they were Christian, they would not have killed the Indians. There's a lot there.
Yeah, I mean, Stephanie, we wish you so well, but
Yes.
it does seem like she's rambling on to a large. Yes, she has a lot of things that she's upset about, and I understand that to lose a son
it seems to be that
is got to be in tremendous grief.
Yeah.
seems to be that there's kind of an equating of hospice and assisted suicide here.
Right.
Hospice is much different from assisted suicide. Hospice is providing the best end-of-life care that's possible.
Yeah.
No matter when the end of life comes. Assisted suicide is ending life before its natural end, whatever that end might be.
That's a good point. And the problem is there was a very famous, infamous really, story about a year ago about a woman who was just depressed. She just didn't think she had a lot to live for, and basically she got approval to end her life. She was 29, I don't remember exactly, but it was in Europe. And I just thought that was extremely sad because God offers hope. So we're not here, actually, I'm going to make a point. We're not here to bash on anybody. We're just here to discuss.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that, and I don't know if it's troubling, but disappointing, I suppose, is that the idea that whoever the president is of the United States, that is somehow a cause for someone to take their life. That's really taking a bridge too far, and that should be the case no matter whatever aisle you're on. If people said I'm going to commit suicide because President Obama was president, that's not a reason to take your. There is no reason to take your life. But as you said, we need to pray for Stephanie and hope that she gets through this grief. And the only thing we could say is, and I'm sure you agree, is just ask for the Holy Spirit to come into your life and take control. And we'll be praying for you. That's for sure.
God bless. I mean, really, seriously, my sister lost her son 2 years ago to accidental overdose. Fentanyl. And he just wanted a couple Ambiens and got it from the wrong place. So I just want to tell you, Stephanie, that no matter what we agree or disagree on, no child should pass before a parent.
We're going to continue doing this the entire show, but before we get another segment, we're going to go to a break in about 2 minutes. But we do have somebody that Felisa, I don't mind mentioning her last name, Felisa Wagner, 5390. She said we were talking about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
And I don't think you were on the show when we talked about dinosaurs. I think that was
that was Pastor Rule. Though I was kind of jealous I didn't get to do that one.
Well, we're going to give you a chance now.
We'll get back,
Right now, Felisa writes, I love this talk. I've never been clear how the Bible addressed dinosaurs. Thank you, guys. Could you do it? Well, we'll do it in the second segment, but get us started on dinosaurs. What is it?
What did you guys talk about? The Bible talks about Leviathan. It talks about
the Great Behemoth.
The Great Behemoth, yeah. All of these cultures, they have myths about dragons, and then the Bible goes and says that Leviathan, spits out fire, but it's God's creature. He put Leviathan in the water to play. God has this kind of joy in creation, and
we messed it up.
And so even dinosaurs around during the age of the flood, probably.
Hey, welcome back to Rebel
after
Religion
flood,
in the
humans
News.
were
I'm
allowed
Pastor
to eat
Alfredo with
meat.
Pastor
And
Brendan
so,
DeForest and our host Jerry O'Lennon. We are taking.
Probably,
I love these
dinosaurs
topics. I
being
love
the
these kind of
biggest
shows.
animal, they were
We
the
put this
first
podcast out,
animals
and
to be
we
eaten
always,
to extinction.
encourage
I
people.
promise
to
you,
leave
next time we talk
comments.
about
And we
dinosaurs,
say-
we're going to make sure it's going to be
whether
with
you
Pastor
agree or
Brendan.
disagree.
Because he's a
please leave
dinosaur.
comment
He's a dino
because
guy.
They're very interesting. We're
That
not here
means
to
we're going
argue.
to take
We're
a
not
break.
here
We
to
got more
debate.
mail to talk
We're just
about.
here
Maybe
to
it's one of
peacefully
yours, and we
share
encourage you
our
to look at our
different views and
podcast,
beliefs.
to
And
send us
yes, we are
emails, give us your
Christians,
thoughts,
and we do
positive,
believe in God and
negative.
the
We got some
Bible, so
negative
we do have
comments as
that
well. We'll get to those.
foundation point of
So
view.
please stay
But
with
if you have
us.
a different point of view, we'd love to discuss it.
Is it okay if I could just take the wheel here for a second?
Go.
Because there's something that I really do think we need to talk about, because it was a very serious discussion on covenant versus replacement theology. And we got some interesting comments on that, and one of them came from R. Scott. And he says, God is not a liar. He made a promise to Israel. If he does not keep his word on the covenant, then why would he keep his word to the church replacement theory? God never replaced Israel, in all caps with 3 exclamation points. Okay, R. Scott, I'm not an expert on this. I have 2 other experts. So I'm Pastor, I think Brendan DeForest, you are one of those who is believes in replacement theology as opposed to covenant theology.
Yeah. And I've argued I don't like that name, replacement theology, but that's what we've got, and so I'm going to go with that. God's not a liar, and he did make a promise to Israel, specifically, though, to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, who was then named Israel. And so God has kept his promises to them, promised Abraham he'd be a great nation. And what do we read from the Apostle Paul in Galatians and Romans? That if you have faith in Jesus Christ, you are a child of Abraham. That's God keeping his promise to Abraham. So
Michael, I want you to finish. I want to dovetail, because Michael Huffman actually is another viewer who wrote in. He agrees with you. He says it was a conditional promise. They broke their part of the covenant by not following Jesus.
And that's an interesting point, because in Deuteronomy, it was told, hey, I'll do these things if you obey all these laws and such.
Yeah, okay.
They didn't, but God is still faithful in keeping his part of the covenant to Abraham and Isaac and Jacob.
Yeah.
I also wanted to say, making a promise to Israel is not the same as making a promise to a modern-day secular government, right? We call the nation of Israel, and that's much different than the Israel of the Old Testament.
Yeah, it is. And I also wanted somebody replied to Michael Hoffman and Lynette 4677. I just wanted to say something here. She said, or he, there was never a covenant made with any other nation than Israel. If you believe differently, show book, chapter, verse that proves otherwise. Now, I will say, if I remember correctly, during the show, we were talking about covenants that he made with single adults, single people.
Yeah.
And this person is right, and I believe I said that. There was no other covenant made with a nation, but there were covenants made with individuals.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
and I don't know exactly what that really means other than what it says.
Yeah.
Israel at that time was God's chosen people and made a covenant with Abraham that he would birth basically a nation.
Yeah. I
So
mean, even
I agree with you, Lynette.
Even in the covenant with Abraham, that's to one person. There was the covenant, in Deuteronomy with the whole nation, and that one was conditional.
But that was Israel.
But that was Israel. That was the
Israel
nation.
again, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Calling Abraham Israel is not. It's equating two things that just aren't exactly.
Yeah, and
same
I'll tell you one thing. I just read a comment by somebody that I did not print out, but basically it was a real long comment, and I'll just give you the highlights. Basically came out and said, the Israel of today is not the Israel originally planned. Therefore, there is no covenant with modern day Israel.
Well, was the covenant was with a group of people, not so much land, or am I wrong about that? I mean, because if there were people who believed in what God was doing and they were in other parts of the world, wouldn't God include them as well? I'm just asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gentiles grafted in. That's talked about in Romans, at 10, somewhere in there, 9 and 10.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, land was a part of it for Abraham, but it was promised that he would get the land of the Canaanites, that his ancestors would end up in the promised land of the Canaanites. Again, that was fulfilled in the Old Testament, and the Israelites lived there for, a few hundred years, a few centuries, several centuries. So
I just want to make a real quick point because for the most part, you and I pretty much agree on everything. There's a couple of things we may have some discussions about.
Yeah.
But I will tell you, when you get in these type of discussions, I just want to make the point that, sure, we can have these kind of like, let's look deep. And by no means do we mean that if we can't agree on this, we can't agree on the doctrine of Jesus Christ, the Savior, the way, the truth, and the life. Because I even tell my men at Bible study, whenever there's like a disagreement or we may not understand a few things, never in hostility, never anger. We're just talking. We always remember that this isn't going to keep you out of heaven.
Right. Our salvation is not dependent on whether or not we agree with certain types of theology. I mean, even when it pertains to there are disagreements on people some you must have baptized. You must take the sacrament. You must take Holy Communion in order to be saved. You must do certain things. There are differences in theological beliefs but ultimately it just comes down to believing that Jesus is
Lord.
God and
Yes.
that you love him and that you accept him. It's as simple as that. And I think sometimes, and let me ask you, do you think sometimes that even on this show that we get too much into the weeds when we should just be talking about bigger picture?
Yeah.
Or is it important to get into the weeds? Or is it just interesting to get into the weeds?
I think getting into the weeds, and I'll pass it over to you, Pastor Brennan. Getting into the weeds sometimes asks or answers the questions that people have that lead them to to the truth of Jesus Christ as the Savior.
that's a fantastic point. How many times are we so focused on what's out? That's great. And sometimes I myself have my own hobby horses.
There was some, and I'm not sure. I didn't print these out, but somebody writes here that Jesus stole a donkey. I don't know what's happening here. And then Doomsday Cult. What happened with this fellow?
Okay, well this is XX-IW4WS. Let's call him Bob. So no disrespect. I just don't want to repeat that again. He basically says, well, the topic was Trump says you can now share your faith in the workplace, but he's talking about the federal employees.
Federal workers.
Federal workers, which I'm sure is, like I said during that show, is going to bleed into the private sector.
It could.
Because somebody's going to go, take that cross down in your cubicle. Wait a minute. If a federal employee can put a cross in their cubicle and share their faith, then I can too. But I do want to make a point that Trump also said, breaks before work, after work, not during work. Don't let it distract from your work. I mean, but if you got, the old water cooler talk.
So what was XXIW4WS's point?
His point is, let's talk about religion, special pleading. God is allowed to always have existed, but the universe isn't. And he's basically being contradictory to what we're saying. God is allowed to be complex without having been designed, but the universe isn't. And he's basically saying, well, wait a minute. If God was there before the universe, who made God, basically? God is allowed to be complex without having been designed. So in other words, God wasn't designed by another power, but the universe isn't. And then he quoted all these scriptures, Deuteronomy 22, Matthew 5, Exodus 21. And I did look up some of them. And I may assume slightly that this person is Muslim, of Muslim faith, because in Matthew 14, 22, 33, verses Shurar al-Kumar and 54, 1, 2, which I believe is from the Quran. And then he said, 1 Corinthians basically says that Christians are a doomsday cult, because it talks about what happens at the end of the world. And then he says, and by the way, Jesus stole a donkey. Well, when Jesus was going to enter Jerusalem, the week before his crucifixion, basically he told the disciples, okay, go in there. There's going to be a donkey prepared. Get the foal. And he says, bring them to me, because the scriptures and Old Testament said he will be riding in on a donkey. He didn't steal it. It was already prepared for him.
There's no evidence that he stole the donkey.
No,
and as for all we know, the disciples maybe slipped him a few bucks on the side and said, give us the donkey, okay? Yeah, sure, here's your donkey. We don't have any idea, but
and
go
he
and
said,
say Jesus stole the donkey. I mean,
borrow the donkey, and when we're done, we'll take it back to you.
Returned.
It was returned. So these are the kind of things that I don't really want to debate, but actually I think lightheartedly I can kind of laugh, because Jesus didn't steal the donkey. He returned the donkey. And who's going to say no to Jesus? He says, my master has need of it, the disciples said. So this is a kind of a small point, but I guess if I had to assume, this is just somebody that doesn't believe at all in the scriptures and was making points of how it's a doomsday cult. They stole a donkey. They contradict each other. God gave all these laws, but who gave God the laws? So it's just that type of topic. But you know what? Thanks for the comment. I appreciate it. And because I've heard that before. Well, Jesus stole a donkey. I've heard that before. But thanks for that comment. I really liked it. Thank you. And it's a great way to start conversation.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, we just finished up these comments, and that's fine. I'm going to occasionally print out the comments, and I'm going to encourage everyone out there. And Felisa actually, as a member of our church, Rocket Life Fellowship, and I think she's the top fan, I believe. She comments all the time. She has a wonderful family, her husband Dale, her mom Mary. They're just wonderful people. And she's the one that also said, I never knew that about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
So we need to have dinosaurs for the next topic. when Pastor Brennan's here.
Well, that wraps up the show. We appreciate the viewer comments, and we encourage you to provide more. And we'll talk about them, and we learn things. And thank you so much for being a part of the show. And Pastor Brennan DeForest, Redeemer Lutheran Church. They have a service on Sundays at 10 o'clock every Sunday morning. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alfredo. And thanks for joining us, everybody. Take good care.
Thank you,
So
Jerry.
long, everybody.